So, podcast number 2.
Podcast number 2.
I won't lie. I'm surprised to see us on the second podcast within 2 weeks, which is a good thing, just because of our busy schedules and our calendars matching up to find this sort of window of time. So it's really cool. We've managed to get another one in as many weeks. So pat on the back for us.
Pat on the back for us. Yeah. I'm quite keen on trying to make this stick because I think it's a nice means of communicating with our members and with anyone else who's keen to learn more about Mossy Earth and what we do. So for me personally, I think I really would love it if we could make it stick.
Yes, no, me too. All jokes aside, it's also it's nice to have this sort of check-in as well every couple of weeks. So let's hope we can stick to it.
So something just to provide context, Matt. Here, last time we started by describing our environment. I think our viewers will be able to appreciate the speed difference in terms of like what fall brings between Portugal and northern Norway. Whereas like last week I was wearing a jacket, now I'm I got also gloves on. It's 6 degrees and decreasing fast. So maybe by the next podcast I'll be sitting in the snow. Whereas I imagine where you're at, you're probably sitting in a t-shirt and it's pretty lovely.
To be fair, sleeves rolled up, and I went for a warm drink instead of water this morning because it was a bit of a chilly morning, probably about an hour ago. It's a little overcast, but I can't imagine it's quite what you're experiencing, and I'm sure today will warm up quickly here in Portugal. But it feels like autumn here as well. Obviously not as severe as where you are. Are you in the exact same spot? I am.
I know, I've moved. I got mountains in the background this time. I tried to make it a little bit nicer, and instead of sitting directly onto the moss on top of my rain jacket, I now got a little mat, so getting more professional here.
Okay, you're showing me up. I'll have to think of a better spot next time.
You had a chair last time, Matt.
Yeah, so. I got the two chairs. I got my coffee. I sort of stuck with what I knew. I thought this worked last time, so I don't want to risk anything. So, nice. Today's podcast, well, actually, the other update I thought, since the last podcast, it's now available widely on most podcast platforms, and it's also been moved from the main YouTube channel to the Field Notes channel, is that correct?
Yeah, exactly. So maybe just a bit on that. Like we thought YouTube had a podcast feature that was maybe a little bit more sort of, like it would separate content better. So the way it works with shorts is that you are able to upload a short and it doesn't show up in the same sort of main YouTube videos that you have. And because we're trying to keep those videos a bit curated, having podcasts come up twice as often, assuming we are able to keep up with the schedule, but having them come up twice as often as a regular video, I think would kind of dilute the power of those regular videos. And we thought they would get more separated. So we've moved them to the Field Notes channel, which is a super exciting channel where we're uploading way more frequently now with monthly updates on our main hubs, what we are calling them right now, these big flagship projects, and also like just general activities that we are funding. So just this week we uploaded another, or just in the past week we uploaded another coral vlog there. We uploaded a video, a vlog for the Cromarty Firth and the work we're doing there with seagrasses and oysters, and we uploaded a video on red kite reintroduction. So it's actually like quite an interesting place to keep up with sort of the more on the ground happenings.
Sure, and I think the podcast probably sits better there as well, just in that a lot of the videos there, these vlogs are a bit more long formy, a bit more sort of raw, face in front of the camera, isn't it? So certainly I think they fit better there as well, sort of algorithms aside. So today's podcast, mainly going to be focusing around video. We've had a lot of questions about the sort of the makings and the behind the scenes of the coral video, the Ecuador video, and I actually had, when I was watching them, I had quite a few questions myself as well, because I'm not involved in the video process. So and then we'll sort of move on to delving into the idea of a documentary. But all of this, as Duarte works in video and I don't, I'll probably be taking more of a sort of interviewer role in this particular podcast, as he's the expert in video. Well, that actually leads to my next point. He says he's not an expert, but but YouTube and filmmaking is not new to you, is it, Duarte?
No. I've been, I don't know if we want to surface this, but very long time ago we were making crappy videos on YouTube. It was always like sort of a passion, but never really connected with work. And it was also there in the early days of Mossy Earth. Like I feel like, I mean, we recorded really nicely and made videos about the first interventions that we made. We just didn't sort of systematically put them on YouTube or did something a bit more of a concerted effort to communicate our project. So it was there from the beginning, but we never sort of took it as serious as we did when we actually started this YouTube channel.
Yeah, I mean, if we're talking about Mossy Earth, I remember we always discussed YouTube, but it was just a capacity thing, wasn't it? When it was just the two of us, there wasn't the 2 or 3 of us, there wasn't the space to dedicate time to it. But I was sort of referring to the video you shared with me on our weekly catch-up the other day, that you've been doing YouTube since you were what 13, 14, is it?
Maybe 12, yeah. So you had to bring it up, Matt. Maybe we could show some clips of that video. It was me and Tiago, who's now one of our biologists, my brother, doing parkour. Filmed on a camera which had maybe about 3 megapixels in total, probably the lowest resolution ever to have been used on a film camera. And yeah, we were just doing parkour, and it was really fun, and we put that on YouTube, and people said mean things to us like you normally get on the internet, but it was fun, and we did more of them, and then yeah, so on, and I've always been making silly videos over the years, so it was nice to be able to then start doing something more serious when we actually had something serious to tell people.
Sure. So yeah, rude awakening to the how mean the internet can be.
No, it was brutal. It was like, your boys are doing all this wrong, and it was like don't do this, don't do that. We took some tips from it. We were like, took it on the chin, but it was a bit like, come on, like in retrospect, like, those are kids.
Yeah. Because we had this conversation, then you sent me the video and I watched the video, and I think you actually, it wasn't just two kids running around like headless chickens. You'd choreographed something, you'd thought about it, and I thought it was quite good. And so then for people to be bullying you online is yeah.
I think but the parkour connoisseurs didn't agree, Matt. The parkour connoisseurs thought it was rubbish.
Sure. So I'm not one to have an opinion on parkour. But, anyhow, so yeah, that was what got you started on YouTube. So coming to the present day, we recently launched the coral video, and yeah, I when I was watching it, sometimes I was like, wow, am I watching like a BBC documentary? The filming was incredible. What's going on under the ocean there is just incredible. So yeah, I and as I say, we got a lot of questions from members. Just wanted to explore a little bit more about the behind the scenes of that video.
Yeah. Maybe I think just to contextualize this for people in case they're wondering why we're talking about filmmaking if rewilding is the main thing that we do. I think just the only interesting point to add here is that for us it has been an absolute game changer. This capacity to communicate our projects has been a game changer, and we hope that it will unlock some new growth and potential to do more and bigger projects. So the bottom line of all of this is restoring nature. It's not just because so just to make that clear in case it wasn't clear, that's the bottom line of all the work that we are doing. So the discussion we're having today is maybe to lead up to what could be the next phase in all of this. So yeah, just to tee that up a little bit. But for the coral video, I mean, how did we go about doing it? It took us 3 weeks to film it, and of course we also filmed this second coral video, or the majority of the footage for the second coral video, which we'll be releasing in November, more focused on the action, the intervention, and how it looks after the intervention. And it was just a lot of diving. I mean, actually what took a lot of time was those free diving scenes. It involved having Yulia, who's my girlfriend, with the camera down there, with Yudi. They were both. So Yudi was sort of the dive master. He was controlling the dive, making sure they kept their depth, that there were sort of no other obstacles. Just essentially keeping an eye on everything sort of managing the underwater area, and up top at the surface with a little buoy so that boats wouldn't hit us, we had Chansa, who's Yuri's girlfriend, and who works as a marine biologist at our project, keeping an eye out for boats, keeping an eye out on me in case I sort of would black out or something, because that's kind of a risk with freediving. And then there would be current, so we would be drifting together, and sometimes the current would be stronger at the surface, sometimes it would be stronger at the bottom. So that was could be quite complicated, where maybe sometimes we would get the divers to go first and they would go put themselves in a certain feature, and then we would start floating at the surface towards them, and then I would ring a little bell before I would dive, and then I would dive, and then we would try to film it. And it was a sort of a funny struggle of sometimes we would go faster, sometimes they would go faster, hard to dive right in the right place on the right feature. We dove both.
What sort of depths are you at? I'm sort of imagining you're under the water. Can you see the boat on the surface, or is it?
No boat.
Just the buoy.
No, just a buoy. Yeah, we were holding on to a buoy. The boat would steer clear, because it would complicate things more. And I mean, any engine there is kind of a danger. So they're supposed to drop off their divers and then clear these areas where people might be diving. That's sort of the ideal scenario. Depths maybe around 10 meters for these free diving sequences. Between some are much shallower, because a lot of our project area is much shallower, so maybe between 5 and 10, the deepest maybe being like 15, but so nothing like particularly impressive from a free diving perspective. But it was fun because I also wanted to just try to show like what this environment looks like relative to a human in terms of size. So for instance, the opening shot in this coral video tried to sort of frame the size of this coral relative to me, and just to bring people in a bit more, and the whole point being like to show people like how impressive these places are, and why the whole point is why we feel so strongly we should be protecting and restoring them.
And the free diving, you sort of mention it blasé, but that's something you've been doing for a while as well, isn't it? It's not like anyone can just sort of jump in the water.
No, sure, but
sink down to the bottom.
Yeah, that's true, but also I'm not particularly good at it either, so maybe not. I'm okay.
Fair enough. And this, so it's a series of episodes, isn't it? Do you already know how many episodes you want to do and what those episodes will cover?
So my thinking is 2 episodes on the main channel based on the filming that we've done now, which is sort of like creating like a really nice base of footage to be able to tell these stories in as beautiful way as possible. And I also filmed a lot of things on the ground from our first ever like proper deployment after getting our permits, so that will be the main thing in the next video. And then after that, sort of probably the updates for the next maybe 6 to 9 months will be all from Yuri and Chansa filming with GoPros, and they'll be more like probably on the Mossy Earth Field Notes channel, and then we will see when we look towards doing another proper episode. So 2 episodes out of this filming batch.
Oh, cool. And you mentioned the GoPro there. The equipment that you and Julia were using, is that anything special? Did you have to buy something specific, or? Yeah,
so a year or 2 ago we invested in bringing the cameras that we normally film our projects in underwater. That the first video to really be able to showcase this was the kelp project, and I think it made a very big difference in terms of like how well we are able to showcase the environment that we're actually working in, because there's a big difference. Like, I mean, GoPros are really useful things, but there's a big difference in bringing a proper like mirrorless camera down there that can really film things. So we essentially bought a housing for the camera that we normally use to film things, so that we were able to essentially go there and change all the settings, do macro photography as well to get those like really close-up images of corals, get like the domino fish, for an instance, like that would be invisible on a GoPro, or be very hard. You'd need to like really shove it in its face, and whereas with a big lens we could actually like really show something that's very small. I mean, that fish is like really the size of like a thumb, or less, so to show it like properly.
Sure. And sort of a segue from cameras, etc., but to logistics. I'm thinking this, just this morning, something as simple as me sitting in front of a camera, there's a few things one must remember. but you're under the water. I'm sure there's a limit on how long you can be under the water for. There's currents. Yeah, talk me through some of the challenges and logistics involved, because I imagine it's way harder than sitting in front of a camera with a coffee.
So I think the biggest thing is that you need to essentially pressurize you put the housing in vacuum. So kind of the moment you do that, the idea is that it helps with the leak detection system. So if any water would to come in through the housing, it changes the pressure inside the housing and you get some kind of alarm, right? So every time, to get the camera ready, it's a bit like, like you're preparing many different things to get it ready, and the last stage is to sort of suck the air out of it using a pump. And then sometimes you get underwater and you realize, for instance, you left one switch, like one of the only switches, for instance, that you cannot actually operate with the million buttons that you have on the housing. Something specifically, for instance, on the lens, you left it on manual focus or something like this, and then it's like unusable, like 100%. You need to go back up, take it all out, clean it so that no salt water goes on the camera, change that one switch, close it all up again, and this is getting 4 divers out of the water and in again. This happened to us probably twice.
Sure.
So we did about 50 dives, I want to say, maybe a little bit less than that.
Wow.
So maybe 40 to 50 dives to film everything. Also, some of them were just work dives, but all of them had a camera. So yeah, there was a lot of diving. So there was a few where it went wrong in that sense. But then underwater, it just behaves well. I mean, corals compared with, and we'll get into maybe the filming of the Amazon and some of our other projects. Filming on a coral reef has the advantage of, unless you're looking for something very specific, it's everywhere. It's in your face all the time. It's like, it's just, I really meant it when I meant I cannot think of a place more alive than a coral reef, because it is really like just buzzing. It's anywhere you point your camera, you're always capturing some kind of wildlife, which is really like, say, if I were to film where I am right now, I'm gonna have to search a lot until I find something that's not a plant, and it'll be tricky and it'll be skittish, and so yeah, it's a real difference in terms of the filming experience on that front.
And when you say it's alive down there, I'm sure it's not just alive with little fish. Are there bigger fish? Are there nasties? Is there
no
anything to worry
nasties?
about?
I think for a diver, there's like, say, maybe with surfing, like what you're more familiar with, Matt, like a shark might be a bit more of a scary thing, but they don't attack divers for some reason, or it's very, very rare that they would attack divers. Actually, we would have loved to see sharks at our project area, but we didn't see any. There are some dives nearby in some locations with more current where potentially we could have gone to film them, but we were really focused on the project and the project area. In terms of nasties, the triggerfish, they can potentially bite if they're in a certain season. I've seen them bite divers before in the past when I was doing my dive master. It looks pretty stressful because they got big teeth and they can take big chunks of flesh off people. But that's kind of like the only it's more of a grumpy animal really down there. There's nothing dangerous. The only danger is us and diving. That's like.
I remember. So I've visited the island where we keep the boat a long time ago, but I've not had the chance yet to visit our project. But I remember when I was there was a lot of sea snakes. I don't know if it was a myth or not, but they can only bite you. Is it between the fingers and by the earlobe or something? That's the only bit of skin that they can get their mouth around. But maybe that's just a surfing myth. I'm not sure.
Yeah, but then it's a diving myth as well, because when you see these sea snakes rock up. Actually, we didn't film the kind of normal coral snake this time. It was sad not to see it, but we did film something that actually even Yudi had never seen in this area, which was a beaked sea snake, which was kind of cool. And yeah, the classic advice for divers is close your hands because they can bite you. Between the fingers supposedly and behind the ears. So people close their hands in fists and cover their ears, and it looks kind of funny. I don't think they care about us. So
sure.
This snake, when I saw it, I kind of like kicked towards it as fast as I could to film it, and then it sort of just swam past me. Couldn't care less about. And I've seen them hunt. I've seen them search for stuff, and they spare a glance at you at most, so yeah, I'd say, but they are extremely venomous, right? So
Sure.
if you were to be bit by one, you would, like, in all likelihood die. Yeah.
Hey. And then so just sort of going back to the point you made at the beginning about getting a context, because if somebody's watching us now, it could be easily thinking, wow, this sounds like a wonderful job Duarte's got, filming underwater, seeing all this wildlife. And yeah, so I'd like to come back to that, the importance of our videos and the impact these videos have sort of indirectly, because the more videos, the more members, the more budget, the more money we can put into nature restoration. So I wanted to sort of talk about budget of a video. Give me some rough numbers. Does YouTube pay for a part of the videos? Where does that? How do we deal with the budgets for making these videos?
I mean, so as members will know, we split the money that we receive from members 80% towards the impact and 20% to cover our running costs. And then we have also money coming in from YouTube through ad revenue. That only really counts for something when a video goes kind of viral and really like gets a lot of views. I'd say broadly, it maybe has covered, like if you add it all up, one of the editors for the period that we've had the YouTube channel. Or you could say it covered all our camera equipment and maybe all the required travel and costs associated with that. You could sort of But yeah, YouTube doesn't pay that back. But what does is the membership, right? So for people to get this into context, we were working on the membership and on Mossy Earth before we had the YouTube channel, right? So we decided to start the YouTube channel proper in 2021, and it really only popped off it was rather quick in my opinion, but in April 22. But sort of by the point we got to April 22, we were nearing 2,000 members, and that was, we started in 2017, so that's 5 years of work. The membership started in 2018 then, so that's 4 years of membership and 5 years of work as an organization to get to about 2,000 members. And then, in another 2 years since then, we've added another 12,000 on top of that, and that's all YouTube. So that's generated a lot of income for Impact, which is the main, reason, of course, we're doing all of this. So that's why we created that YouTube channel to begin with. But it also has increased a bit our capacity and has definitely paid back in terms of our capacity to film. So the 20% covers the rest of the costs. So that would be my salary, the salary of whenever I am filming, the salary of Tom, in the past also of Rob, and the salary of the editors, or also of Hicken and Joel in the past. So essentially everything associated with videos, and then also publishing them, like the thumbnail work and all of these kinds of things. That of course gets covered easily by the 20% that we are bringing in, because it's very worthwhile to make these videos from the perspective of our organization, essentially.
Yeah, and I'd add just a little more context as well. Those years you mentioned before we launched YouTube, we tried a lot of different growth channels, hadn't we? And to get those 2,000 members, there was no specific growth channel that was getting more than another, was it? They were sort of coming from here, coming in from there, and we tried.
Except Alex Honnold, Matt.
Sure, and that's,
but it was not a channel. It was a very kind man who became a member and decided to shout us out, and that helped us a bit. But yeah, it never became more than that. The Coral video was more than 2 Alex Honnold shout-outs combined, at least, before he won an Oscar, I suppose. But yeah, it really changed the game for us.
Yeah, definitely. We tried these other growth channels, and they just weren't having the return what something like YouTube does. So it just sort of shows how important these videos are for enabling us to have a bigger impact, right?
And I think, from my perspective, it's just a way that you can, how do you explain to someone that you want to flood a forest, and that is a good thing,
Sure.
Like an Instagram post, there's many, like a page where you can explain your project. Sure, you can explain it there, but that's not the kind of, in this day and age, people are not going around just reading project pages, and that's what's going to get a lot of people in, or a blog, or so the format fits what we are doing very well. So being able to spend 15 minutes on something like this, and to really explain what is the problem what caused the problem that we're trying to fix, how we're going to fix it, and show the results. It allowed us to explain what to many people would be very weird kinds of projects to implement, like flooding a forest, or why one would try to rescue 4 snail species on a deserted island in the middle of the Atlantic, or among these kinds of like strange ideas, and you need context for this.
Sure. Yeah, there's no better way of sort of explaining all of that and all the nuances of a project, is there, than a YouTube video.
And just one last thought, Matt, on this. Like, I feel like the YouTube videos also have one thing, and again, this is not some kind of like bragging or anything, but I think if we close shop now, we would list our achievements on the projects that we've done, and that's like the primary thing. But I would also add to that list the people that we've reached with a message about rewilding, and that it got them thinking about rewilding and understanding that it is a possibility. And I would be very happy to know the millions of people that we've managed to reach with this message, and if it resonated with them just a little bit, that's like, I think it's moved the needle for us in general, like as a society.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, there's big numbers watching the videos, isn't it? So
sometimes.
it's really cool. Yeah, sometimes. But yeah, like you say, even if that's inspired somebody to set up a project of their own or to explore more of a particular subject area, yeah, it's really cool.
And just maybe one last thought, Matt, sorry. Because you described it as a dream job. It is true, it is an absolute dream job. It's a real privilege, and I'm very happy to be doing it. There's also a lot of like burnout kind of work. Like, I think everyone in the video team has like burned out at one time or another, and you're very
sure.
above all at the mercy of the algorithms. Maybe people aren't particularly aware of that, but on YouTube there is a trend of burning out of a successful YouTube channel, because it's very hard to sustain an effort for so long, and then to sort of make your best video ever and have it like turn out like not the same results as like a video you spent way less time on or something like this. But for me, like what keeps it all into perspective is the work that we are doing, and knowing that that's the goal, so I can get my ego a little bit more out of how the videos are doing, and how much effort one puts in, and then not to necessarily see the results one wants. But yeah, it's so dream job, but it does have a bit of faff to it.
Yeah, and you were diving for 3 weeks. There's 52 weeks in a year, and I know very well how much time we're on calls and poured over laptops just running Mossy Earth. So yeah, it's a dream job when you're diving, but yeah, there's a lot else that Duarte does. So should we have a look at a couple of questions about the Ecuador video as well?
Okay.
So let's perhaps try and compare it. So you talked about challenges in Indonesia with currents, etc. What are the challenges in Ecuador? It's equally richly biodiverse, isn't it? I'm imagining you just wander out with your camera and you get all sorts of stuff, but I imagine there's challenges there as well.
So I'd say, like, contrary to what people think, I mean, okay, you go to the Amazon, you're going to see a ton of wildlife. It's amazing. So no doubt there. So I don't want people to think differently. But the wildlife in the Amazon is a lot more skittish, right? They are quick to hide, and they're difficult to spot. And some kinds of animals, especially like bigger mammals, like, good luck. You're not spotting them. You're spotting some monkeys maybe, but anything that's like a bigger mammal that walks on the forest floor, like, you would need to be very lucky or very quiet and very stealthy to be able to film that. So actually we used a lot of camera traps, and that's how we got like amazing footage, which we have not shown yet on YouTube properly. That's still yet to come in the remaining episodes that we filmed for the Amazon. So yeah, very different way of filming using like camera traps. And
like we... Oh,
yeah,
sorry, you go.
No, go for it, Matt.
Okay. I was going to say, like the coral, we've got a series of episodes in the pipeline, and what are some of those episodes going to look at?
So yeah, on the in terms of the Yasuni projects, the rainforest, the Amazon rainforest project, we have 2 videos out right now. One is sort of an introduction to the project, they're trying to show like a bit of everything. The next one was a tour of the land, sort of very long, one of the longest videos we've made, and just really in depth, trying to show people like what this bit of land looks like, to ground them a bit in the reality of the place. The next video is going to cover the work that we've been doing climbing really tall trees in the canopy, and I'm really excited about that one, because we have a lot of interesting and exciting reveals that will also involve potentially our members in the future. So it's a video I've been looking forward to the most, I think. And then after that, I would like to show the wildlife that we've been able to film, because that's actually, we only shown maybe like 70% of the wildlife on the land, and to try to sort of summarize it for people. Like, this is what we found on our land. This is the state of the wildlife on our land. And perhaps considering like a next steps kind of video. But that's maybe will be saved for when Tiago, Adriana and Ollie go back there and work on some new steps in this project with Freddie.
And the coral, you said 3 weeks. How long did the first Ecuador in terms of filming time?
So for in Ecuador, we were there for in the Amazon rainforest itself for about I want to say 7 weeks. I want to say almost 2 months essentially. And I think the main challenges there, besides trying to find wildlife, so say for instance to film certain birds, we would go out very early in the morning, like 5 in the morning, get out looking for like one bird making a bit of sound, and then sort of filming it and then moving on to the next. And so besides like the looking process, there was also the component of humidity that was brutal. So cameras start fogging up after a while. Of course, all your clothes get like moldy. That's something you can manage by like cleaning them super frequently and hanging them to dry whenever the sun is shining. But the cameras needed some kind of like solution. So we bought this huge box of plastic, filled it with rice, then put another plastic box in there. And then the cameras would go in there every night. So I would sort of clean them up and then put them to bed in that like sealed box with rice every night to try to stave off the fogging problem. Because we were there, so for some context, we were there, we also visited Mandaripanga, the community led lodge that Freddie works, or that he has created. And at the same time, there were some filmmakers visiting, I think they were filming for National Geographic, and the biggest challenge for them was, they were like, this was at the start of our visit, so they're like, you're gonna suffer with the fog, like take active measures to combat this now. That was one of the other challenges. And I'd say the final one was actually quite an odd one. So many times I've gone and filmed projects and you have like limited time, like 3 or 4 days, get on with it, get the video filmed, because there's a million things to do at Mossy Earth. Film the video in 2 or 3 days. But in the Amazon, it was almost, the problem was a bit the opposite. So I let the scope of like us being there for a couple of months sort of, it went a bit too far. So we ended up filming like everything. And then when you wake up in the morning, you look out of your window. If it looks pretty, you're at work, right? So you got to grab your camera and start filming. So sometimes I'd go to I'd wake up in the middle of the night to go pee, and it looked beautiful. So then I ended up grabbing my camera and doing a time lapse. And we all sort of got into this mode. So you're like constantly, if there's a nice bird outside, if there's a nice sound, like you get into this a lot. So it also was quite exhausting by the end of it. But once again, wonderful, unforgettable experience that you'll never really hear me complain about. So I don't want anyone to get that idea. But it was challenging. It was work.
And you mentioned the National Geographic team. How was their setup different from yours, or was it very similar in terms of camera gear?
I think definitely they were more specced out in terms of, I didn't actually get a look at their cameras. We got decent cameras, like they do the job. They're like Netflix approved, if you will, but they're not like crazy like expensive. I think they had some really, really expensive gear, and above all they had like expensive like dollies and like stuff to like essentially get really smooth shots, because they were there to get only a single sequence of shots of a bee. Like this is the kind of stuff that they're doing, right? So they are there focused on like this sequence of shots of a particular bee, and trying to essentially build this sequence to be within this National Geographic documentary. Whereas we were there, well, talking to camera, trying to contextualize the whole project, most of the, to show the rewilding side that we're trying to do in that bit of land, and to film everything and anything, So sort of anything and everything for us was game. Whereas like for them, if like a nice monkey showed up, they couldn't care less. They're there to film. Like maybe they film with their phone and send it to their friends, but they are there to film the bees, you know. So they're spending 3 weeks or something, like setting up all the shots, and they had a whiteboard with like 40 or 50 shots that they're trying to get for this particular bee, and then it needs to they need to get a wasp that's gonna come in and fight with it, and it's like, so they have to wait for that moment. It was a completely different story, I think.
So who had it easier, them or you?
Yeah, I mean, they could switch off after they're not filming the bees anymore, I suppose, you know, but if they don't get the bee, then they got nothing to show for, whereas like we always got something to show for, so I suppose each one's got their the pros and cons.
Cool. And then there was a lot of comments. I should have mentioned this when we were talking more about the coral, but for the coral, there was a lot of comments about the domino fish. Just tell us a little bit more about the domino fish, and then whether there was a sort of similar character in the rainforest.
So I think what was special. I think what was special about the domino fish is that it moved into something that we did, right? And I immediately, when we were there, identified it as like something exciting. Like we thought it's actually was one of the, like they usually form these groups and they live in like these big bush-like acropora corals, and it's really nice to see like a group of like 20 or 30 of them, and as you approach the coral, they'll all sort of like dive into the coral, and then it's almost like they do it in sync, so they come in and out, like, you know, a bit like as if it's like a lung breathing or something like this. They're like really synchronized in this, and they'll just all like dip into their sort of little spot inside the acropora coral bush, if you will. So yeah, to see it there, I was like, that's really exciting, because then I can also like go and film them properly in one of the acropora. I ended up filming another species of damselfish, I believe, in the acropora, but and what was special about it? It's a character, right? Like I think it really resonated with people, like that, just the fact that it creates a character. There's no other way to put it. So it's instead of it being a group or a random fish, it's like an individual, you know. It's that, because it was an individual. Like there's a fish that moved in to that coral and it stayed there, you know. So you know, of course, until something else like will happen to it, as does in nature, but it moved in. And I think that's what was quite unique to people, and maybe they were not expecting that fish move into a particular coral. I don't know if this is something that people are aware of. You know, I think they have the idea that the clownfish lives in the anemone, but maybe they're not aware that a lot of fish really have like a spot, and if you've seen it in one place, you'll in all likelihood see it there the next day at least.
I also think it was quite iconic, just, you know, the color pattern of it, the sort of black and white, you know, there's no coincidence why it's called
like a domino with the dots.
Exactly. And and just the sort of size of it, for me it sort of represents this just fragility of what we're doing, and like almost like a turning point, you know. From here, you know, as you say, nature, bigger fish will come in, and you know, it's this sort of snowball effect. But there was something powerful about the fragility of this little black and white fish. It was a great moment, and a lovely narrative in the video you made.
Maybe to contextualize this for people, actually, about the bit of the work that can sometimes be a bit more complicated. I got enamored with all the underwater shots that we filmed there, and I wrote the coral video, I did the full voiceover, and I edited the full video, and then I realized it wasn't good enough, and for people to understand that this domino fish was not in it. And that's the funny thing. Sometimes, you know, you like this writing process, like it can also be, you know, quite complicated to achieve what you really want in the end. So I ended up sort of scrapping a full done Mossy Earth video at a stage when, you know, I really wanted to release it, to then redo it completely, and that's why we had such a long break between videos. So there's a bit to that as well.
And so going back to the rainforest, was there any characters in terms of wildlife, or was it just too many to name?
I think you know, the characters, how it gets woven into the story, you know, but there is no animal that particularly like moved into our house or anything like this, you know. But I'd say the characters that strike me as the most obvious ones were these Oropendolas, namely the russet-backed Oropendola. they are this bird that makes this wonderful choop kind of sounds, and they sort of they bow down when they make this sound, and it's really impressive and really striking. And I think probably one of the nicest sounds you can hear in the jungle. And they set up on one of the only trees that was left in the cow pasture in front of our house, and they make these nests that are teardrop shaped. So we could always see them coming in and out of those nests. When it was stormy, you see the nests completely dangling like crazy, and you're wondering, is the Oropendola in there getting seasick, or did it go to the forest? So we saw them there a lot, and we saw them come back after the rain, and it was just they were a character in that sense that we saw them we saw them build the nests as well, right? So there were 3 nests when we were there. And they sort of built another 3 or 4, and you could see the progress incrementally every day. They're bringing more things, and this is things being built in front of you. So it was, they were the character, I suppose, in that front. Not a singular, but maybe as a group of 10 or 20 of them, they were a little bit of a character. And maybe in the canopy there are also some characters, but I will keep those secret for now.
Ah, nice. So yeah, they were all of the questions I had and those of members about those 2 videos. Is there anything else you wanted to add, either about the video there in Ecuador or the coral video in Indonesia?
No, I would say that maybe sometimes people ask, what about the travel footprint to go to these places? I mean, for instance, just to clarify specifically for these 2 videos, Ecuador, we just set up a major project. We hired Freddie. Adriana and Thiago went there to ground the project and understand it, because we're building out a project there. So I think it's the best carbon air miles ever used, as far as carbon goes, As far as me going there and filming it, it's kind of what funds it. So yeah, I view it as the travel is a sacrifice worth making, because we're not going there with huge teams and it doesn't have this huge footprint. And I think Mossy Earth in general, with the amount of trees that we've planted, is very much a carbon negative thing. But just to address this travel component. So we went there and we took advantage of it. So when I went to that side of the world, and then I also proceeded to go to Argentina, because we funded projects in Argentina. So with Rewilding Argentina. So it was also, we really tried to take this serious and maximize it. And when we went to film the coral, I had a wedding I was going to go of one of my best friends in South Korea, and I was going to go there regardless, because I'm not missing the wedding of one of my best friends in South Korea. So we were going to go to that side of the world anyway. So then sort of Indonesia was, of course, it's still a really big step, but yeah, it's a lot less. So we're very conscious of it. We try to be careful with this.
And of course you're banking footage for episodes, so it's not like you're flying out there for each episode we film for each project.
No. Yeah, this was for the coral, I think there's a base of footage that's filmed that will be useful for all future videos, and there is for the Amazon certainly the same, and we have a lot of episodes still yet to be released. So Matt, you'll be
nice.
You'll be interested to hear that I'm actually getting rained on. It's not a big deal, but that tells you really how different our weather is right now. There's sun, but also rain.
But I think they say in Norway, don't they? There's no such thing as bad weather; it's bad clothes or something that.
I just put on a layer, so But actually, I didn't even bring an umbrella for the camera, so maybe there'll be a few splashes on it. So hopefully it's not going too crazy.
I mean, it's getting grey here, but I don't think we're going to have rain, though it's much needed. There's been fires in the north of Portugal, actually. I don't know how.
I wanted to talk about that at the start of the episode, because I was I was thinking that I was talking with Jakub from Broz, in Slovakia, where Siggy, maybe the people know him as Siggy in the videos, because there everything is flooding, right? There have been horrible floods that have killed a lot of people in Central Europe. And this, these floods are there in the area where, our wetland is completely flooded, right? So I saw a couple of comments that made me think about this. They're you guys must be happy with all the flooding. We're no, we're happy that the wetlands, that these wetlands are capable of reducing the negative effects of the flooding. But we're very much not happy with the destruction that flooding causes. So I think that's a big deal for us. And then, yeah, at the same time, on the other side, so that's like we're working on wetlands in Central Europe, and on the other side of, like on the other end of Europe, in Western Europe, everything's burning. And this is literally on the same day, some of the worst fires in Portugal at the same time as it's like pouring down. And then we're trying to address fire also with our projects in Portugal. So I thought it was like a funny thing where it's like, you see, this is like where rewilding and the needs of humans can kind of like link up quite clearly. Like we have an incentive to solve these problems as well.
Yeah, it's funny because you and I hadn't spoken before this podcast. You know, we just on Monday we sort of booked it in, but since then we've not spoken. And I too, it was rattling around in my brain because I've been watching what's happening in the north of Portugal. You know, there's wildfires every summer, but this summer particularly bad. And yeah, I was just sort of trying to work out the link between what we're doing and these horrible fires in the north. And we've even received some sort of messages, emails, etc. Some from people, what can one do after their land has burnt? And actually, Teresa, our conservation biologist, she shared a really nice guide for people whose land has burnt. It's like a guide, a series of steps one can take to what to do with your land after a fire's been through. So that's available, and we've shared that with people. So yeah, if anybody's watching and they're in Portugal and their land has suffered, we can share this guide. But yeah, also that again, it comes back to this. Yeah, what's the point of video? And it increases budgets really. And here in the Mirror, so we're in the south. It's just as it's prone to wildfires as well.
You had a big fire last year, right, Matt?
Exactly. Yeah. 8th of August last year, we had a big fire in this area, and this area is probably more prone because it's warmer down here and it's drier down here. And one of the nice things the team are doing here as part of this project in the Mirror is using technology to to help notify when a fire has started. So using technology to prevent fire from spreading, like early warning systems. That's the what I was looking for. And again, such things are only possible with budget. So yeah, it kind of ties into this, you know, what's the point of video? And also there's, I mean, we say, so we've got fires here where we're working, we've got floods where we're doing flooding projects in Central Europe, and then there's the fires in South America as well, you know, and in the rainforest there. So
yeah, I know that this week Freddie is keeping an eye out for any potential fires starting at the land. Freddie and Jaime are quite concerned about this because the forest right now is at its driest, and this is when sometimes people, it can of course catch fire naturally, but often started by humans who want to clear land, and this can spill out of control. So they're keeping a close eye on the whole sort of area to, yeah, hopefully, so that hopefully nothing burns.
There we are. So should we move on to the idea of documentary?
Yeah, let me grab my notes here from my phone really quick. So I think essentially, like I alluded to at the start of this video, or of this podcast, I think that there's an impact to be had with the videos themselves, and that I think our main focus will always be or not always, but will at least be for now to continue our current model, which is working great at getting us new members, getting more projects funded, interesting projects make for interesting videos, and continuing this sort of nice loop that has brought us so much opportunity to do meaningful projects. But at the same time, we are filming a lot, and I thought we could potentially use some of this footage, use some of the stories that we have, and film some additional things to create a documentary. And the way I envision this, or the purpose for me of this documentary, is to, you know, showcase the potential of rewilding by giving people concrete examples of the transformation that you witness. So I think that's what's worked quite well on the videos, that the best performing stories that we have on our YouTube channel is to showcase the potential for nature to come back. So I think one of the biggest things for me before starting Mossy Earth was I thought of nature as this sort of ever shrinking, sad, like, you know, wonderful thing, but that's just like sort of in an ever shrinking state, and conservation is just like trying to hold on to it, and a lot of it can be trying to hold on to stuff, but we actually now have, in many instances, we can be on the front foot to try to repair things, and that's what always excited me about rewilding in general. And I think that's what's been exciting for our videos. A lot of people tell us about this sort of relief that they feel that something can be done and something is being done, at least in some capacity, to bring back nature in different areas. So this message, I would like to try to bring it to a new audience, I think. So I think a documentary could be quite a good idea to try to bring it to people who maybe aren't, used to learning about things on a YouTube video. So essentially trying to replicate the stories that we already have for a new audience. And I think there's I have a few thoughts around it. So the primary goal for Mossy Earth would be, it's an awareness effort. So it would be to reach new people about rewilding. I don't think we would be promoting a membership and focusing on that in that rewilding series. So it's not that it's not there to increase our membership base. It's just really purely a messaging, like trying to get people to know more about rewilding. So the documentary is sort of the end goal in itself. Like the reach of the documentary would be the end goal, and I'm thinking that we would reach new audiences by potentially pitching this to some kind of streaming service, or we would pitch it to we would sell it regionally to different TV stations, or many ways to go about the distribution of such a documentary, with the main objective of trying to sort of have it reach as many new kinds of audiences as possible. And
just jumping in to give the viewer or listener a little clearer picture. And when we're talking about rewilding, is this Mossy Earth project or projects across the globe, whether it's Mossy Earth or not?
I'm thinking it could be a mix. Certainly we will feature our own projects because that's the work that we have most access to, and it's easier to film, and then I can sort of kind of kill two birds with one stone in terms of filming. So let's say like an obvious one will be coral, right? Like we've been talking about it. I think it's one of the most visual, transformative bits of rewilding, and we've already been filming a lot for it. We will continue to film a lot for it, and it's something that maybe a general audience isn't as tuned into, like how it can work. So most certainly we would want to be like what would be one of the examples we would include, for an instance. I think it could also include our partners, because we have wonderful partners, but I don't think we would go look for any random project. So it's either our project or projects that we are connected to through partners. Just sort of thinking like from a Mossy Earth perspective, like what could be the objectives of this. So of course reaching new audiences and educating them. I think that if we do an okay job, potentially this could then return a profit, like back, like we could sell this documentary, right? Like to a lot of different markets and get a bit of money back. That's how documentary filmmakers make their money. And I think there's this sort of additional sort of like not wasting footage goal kind of thing. So repurposing our content for something like this, I feel like it's a bit like not throwing out food, It's like, or if you got organic remains, putting it in the composter, Just this idea of not wasting some of the stuff that we've done already, or repurposing it essentially. So to increase the juice we get out of like a filming session.
Sorry, and this might be too early to ask, because we're still only in the sort of brainstorming stage. But what kind of sort of thoughts do you hope it evokes in the viewer? Because when growing up, I used to love the BBC documentaries, your David Attenborough stuff, but more often than not, a lot of them just sort of evoked alarm and fear. I enjoyed what I was seeing, but it was painting quite a dark picture. So are we looking to inspire, to motivate, get people curious? Is it to set alarm bells ringing?
Yeah, I mean, I think at Mossy Earth we've generally positioned we explain the problems, but we tried not to focus. We're not there to raise awareness necessarily just about the problems. We're usually more there to try to get people excited about solutions. I think it's just a matter of like both are really important. It's just where we sort of have slotted in, because mostly we're solution providers, right? So we're there to solve a particular problem. So that's usually, we introduce problems in the context of then introducing the solution to it. So I would view that these documentaries, I would above all like to show people that like to give them hope. I think that's been the biggest feeling that has been clearly expressed like on our comments about our videos, has been that it gives the people hope, and I think this hope can change their mind and open them up more, instead of like shutting down, like everything's like going terrible, I don't want to think about it. Of essentially opening them up to thinking about nature and rewilding and even conservation and so yeah, I'm thinking hope and really maybe a bit of inspiration, like showing people like if you show people that it can be done, people start thinking about their own areas and backyards, and they're like, why does my local forest, like, why is it boring, what is missing here, and that could have really big effects, I think, as well.
Yeah, very cool.
So
yeah, you go.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that for me personally, there's also like, I have a personal stake in this. Like I think YouTube videos, we do, we have to edit them with what's called, retention editing, right? So on YouTube, someone clicks on your video, it's a hard-earned click, and then you got to keep them watching. So the first 30 seconds, you got to like drop like, this is going to be an amazing ride in this video, and it's like, whereas like, and sometimes you can let the videos breathe a bit more, but you usually don't have a lot of space. I think I was watching a podcast from Bo Miles, that he was expressing that he would much prefer, he's a YouTuber by the way, he does like adventure documentary stuff, and he was doing it before YouTube, and there he expressed that, it was, he'd love to not have to unveil everything at the beginning, not have to tell the whole story in one like super fast bit right at the start of the video, or be able to let shots linger and let things meander a bit more. And but on YouTube you cannot do that. It's the platform, we edit for this platform, and I'm very happy to tell stories like that. I'm very used to telling stories like that, and it's completely a constraint that we're okay with. But maybe on a documentary, for me personally, the idea of letting the story breathe a little bit more, being able to have a little bit more time, and not having to go so straight line, obvious towards the solution, being able to sort of let it meander a bit more, let the audience maybe figure out some things for themselves a bit more. That appeals to me personally quite a bit, as someone who's, well, in some way, a wannabe filmmaker these days. There's something exciting about that as well, and maybe spending also more time like filming like a scene to polish it until you're thoroughly satisfied with it. So again, our videos, we need to keep them coming, so we keep getting members, so we get the next video out and chop, like if we could do it faster, that would be better. Whereas maybe the documentary, it's more like, it's not how fast you release it, you kind of polish it up, so if you're not happy with a shot, you can work towards a replacement shot, and it's this idea of perfecting something a little bit more also is personally exciting, I think.
Yeah, I watched that same, well, you sent it to me, the podcast with Bo Miles, and yeah, who has a background in, documentaries was his thing originally, wasn't it? And he says, yeah, if you put a 2-hour documentary in a cinema, movie theatre, people are going to sit down. They're not going anywhere, are they? But if they're sort of browsing on their phone or on their laptop, yeah, people don't have much more than 10 minutes, do they? So yeah, completely different space. Yeah, I'll be interested to see how that works.
Yeah, and then yeah, the reason why I also would like to bring it up in this format is because we've been thinking on how to fund this, because we have this like limitation, this 80-20%, and for people, I mean, we generally report our numbers, but we don't talk so much about the 20% side of things. We are currently just about breaking even at Mossy Earth on a monthly basis, in terms of supporting the costs that we have for the rest of our team, everyone who, from who does the design work, community management, the communications, like the emails, who develops our website. who does all our sort of operational stuff. Like all of these costs, they come out of the 20%, and we are, I think, a very lean, efficient machine on that side of things, that we managed to keep this very big, I think last time you said scaffolding, right? That this is the scaffolding that holds up Mossy Earth, and we're able to hold up something quite big with a very limited amount of scaffolding. But something like a documentary and the costs associated with that, I know from our numbers that we cannot fit it into this 20%. So also one of the reasons, to bring it up in this podcast, why it's all links back to impact, is to understand what our members think about using impact budget for it. And because it's not a direct action project, which is what we've always used 100% of our impact budget for, I think I would like to start this process of asking people what they think about this idea, and whether they think funding a documentary would be a worthwhile use within the context of the general Mossy Earth budget, with sort of the aims that we've mentioned earlier. But yeah, I was also thinking, Matt, go for it.
Yeah, I was going to say, would there be a way of tracking, so let's say the documentary came out of the impact budget, is there a way of tracking the indirect impact that a documentary has had, or is that just too
well, I suppose we would be able to get viewership figures from wherever we would distribute those documentaries, right? And maybe I do have this hope as well, that if we did a good enough job, that we could actually sell the documentary, and if it breaks even, then it has cost nothing. It's just sort of a temporary loan from the impact budget to the documentary making. So it's more of a temporary capacity thing. What if we could break a profit, then we can bring money back, we can bring money back to the impact budget, and that would be cool. I don't want to, we never sold a documentary, so I don't want to promise things, but yeah, my thought is that I think it's even if the money was just sort of fully spent in that direction, and we managed to get it in a few different places, reach a few different new audiences, and we would of course eventually release it to an online audience as well. I think it'd be well worth the money we would spend on it, but maybe it can return money, so that's why I'm quite excited about the idea. It feels like we're best utilizing some of the things we're doing anyway. We're broadening the message of rewilding, and potentially we're doing this at a temporary cost, or maybe no cost at all if we do a good enough job at selling this. But right now it's at a idea stage, and that's why we want to consult our members. So together with this podcast video, we are sending a form that all Mossy Earth members can fill out for the next few weeks, just to give us a feel for how people think about this idea, essentially. So we don't know exactly the full questions yet there, but we'll be working on that form in the next couple of days. So yeah, you'll be able to really express your opinion and your thinking about how we do this. And if our members don't like the idea, we won't do it, of course. But I think it could be quite worth our time, effort, and money.
And I always think capacity, logistics. Is it something the current team could do, or would more people need to be brought in? Does specific equipment need to be brought in? Yeah, what are your thoughts?
I think there would be a small amount of equipment that could be needed. And I would be keen to mostly work with the existing team, maybe a few other people that we know could help out, but not broadening it too much so as not to really get into crazy costs scenario, so
sure.
keeping it small, keeping it lean. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, in terms of cost, I've modeled it a little bit. I don't have it's hard to budget for all of this at this moment right now, and we want to first know as well what part of this survey would be what people are thinking in terms of how they would like to see in terms of episodes. Do they want a certain amount of episodes, or do they think a single documentary? So the scope of the work will change the budget. But I'm thinking, regardless of what we would do, it would take a few years, because we want these stories to be able to show nature changing, and nature doesn't change overnight. I mean, it can change fast in many instances, but ideally a couple years at least would be good. So between all of the filming, I'm thinking at least between 50 to 100,000 pounds per year of filming, I think would be quite a reasonable estimate for the cost of doing this work. So that would be me and another person filming. So we'd have two people filming essentially on that, and we would that would cover the travel. That would probably cover the gear as well, I think. So yeah, it really depends on the scope of the work here. But to contextualize that for people, I think that's about around 5% of our annual budget, give or take. So it's still a significant amount. 5% is no, it's a bit of budget, but it's also not a crazy amount either for what I think. There's quite a bit of potential. I don't know. I mean, I don't dare to dream what the real result of this could be. Imagine we are able to, I don't know, your classic example would be sell this thing to a Netflix and it becomes like a real cultural thing. Like people watch it and they're like, wow, this is amazing, Of course, that would be worth its weight in gold if you're actually able to hit this sort of like cultural virality. But a few steps below that, just reaching, let's say, something in the hundreds of thousands of people that don't usually watch our YouTube videos with this message, I think would also be, because it's maybe a completely new audience, I think it would be very worth the documentary.
Yeah, you'd certainly get recognised on the train if it was Netflix, wouldn't it?
Yeah, maybe.
Because you've been recognised a couple of times, haven't you?
Yeah, a couple of members have walked up to me. It's kind of funny, but it has happened. More last year than this year. This year, I think our videos are getting they're going less viral, so there's less random people. Or maybe I'm spending less time on trains, so I don't know.
There you go. And again, like you said, it's still the early brainstorming phase. We want to get more feedback from members, your thoughts on this idea. I'd be curious to see if there's grants available, but as well, yeah. I imagine it's probably quite a competitive space, but there could be grants available for such documentaries.
I think it's just that, Matt, we are grant givers, so I think the first people I want to, like we got money to do things, right? So the first people I want to ask about this is our members, because we think it fits within our impact budget. Like we have the space for it. So from our perspective, it is a worthwhile thing to do. But because our members are there to fund direct impact, this is a question that needs to be asked. From the few members that I've spoken to, people are excited about the idea and think it's worthwhile. But there's no guarantees there, right?
Sure. No, I'm one of those getting excited by it and running away with ideas. I'm imagining showing it in cinemas and things, which would be really cool. But
I would really like that, because we could definitely show it in festivals. But a festival has a few hundred people there, our YouTube videos have millions of views. It's of course maybe it's more impactful when people see it in a big screen and they are there, and there's maybe more the impact goes deeper into those people, if you will. And of course the documentary would, like you said, they got their popcorn, they're sitting down, they're gonna spend an hour really digesting that idea. But I think the real impact for me is if we could distribute it to TV, to something like a streamer, like an HBO or a Netflix, or again, this is something that we'd still have to research and that we would try to nail. But for me personally, I would love to sit in a cinema and watch it with people. I think that would be a very exciting thing. Maybe it could allow us to do some events with members in different cities,
that's what I was imagining. They'd watch the documentary and a bit of a Q&A as well. How you made it, the behind the scenes. It could be meeting the members.
Maybe we could bring some of the people doing some of the projects. It could be really fun, and I think a rewarding way for people working in those different projects to showcase their work. Say bringing Yuri and Chansa to talk about the coral project, and I think that would be, it could be quite cool. I'm really excited about the idea, but I think we take nothing for granted, especially our members. So
sure.
Yeah, that's why we have to ask these questions. So if you're a member, please, with the email that we sent this podcast with, so the moment this podcast is live, there's also there should be a form in your inbox that you can fill out. So please let us know, and we'll also just do general polls for audiences on YouTube and maybe even Spotify. So we get an idea also what the general audience, not just our members, think about this idea.
Nice.
Cool. Well, Matt, I have to go work on a very complicated script on aquatic plants. I have 20 hours worth of Udo and Claudia explaining the wonderful mysteries of aquatic plants. So I have to go work on this script now. So
yeah, just before you shoot, we said in the last podcast that we'll leave the members with something, and I felt that since we're talking about video today, what can viewers expect to see across our 3 channels in the coming weeks?
So I think so next week, I believe we have on the Field Notes channel, we will have something on the Amazon, and we will have this video about the project that we have with muskox here in the Nordics. So I went on. So the Amazon video will be like a monthly update that Freddie explaining like how things are going at the land. And then the muskox video is I was part of this expedition to go find this last herd of muskox that exists in Sweden, and that's been a video that we've made on YouTube as well. So the follow-up, we feel like it belongs in the Field Notes, so we're gonna put it on there. So that should be, I think, it next week on Field Notes. And then in terms of the main channel videos, we are working on the next installment of the quarry project. So there's been quite a bit of transformation since the last time we visited that location. We've also paid for essentially a survey to be done in terms to evaluate the state of the aquatic plants. The aquatic plants there, and that was really interesting, and I was there with the team when they were doing that, so I filmed that, and it was just fascinating what we found in some of the areas we transformed. It involved some real surprising things. I thought it was really exciting, so I'm excited to nerd out on aquatic plants and the new life that has moved into these areas. And after that, I will start work on video about the ocelot reintroduction that we have supported Rewilding Argentina with, which is a video we've been also sitting on for a while. It's very exciting. It's a wonderful, incredible place where they've done incredible work, and also very excited to work on that. And then finally, just to note, we also have our Wild Notes channel. So all these channels confusingly have notes in them nowadays. I don't know why we did this. So there's the Mossy Earth Field Notes channel, which has these vlogs, and then we have a channel that's just focused on educational side of things, and it's called Wild Notes. And Tom Hicken is working on a video about symbiotic relationships on there, so he gets to nerd out on that. And I think the 2 videos that are on there right now, one about why biodiversity peaks in the tropics, and another one about de-extinction, are really interesting and bring these complex topics to viewers in a nice and digestible way. So quite excited about that as well.
Cool. Lots in store, and of course this podcast will go up in the next few days as well. And
in 2 weeks, Matt, we try again. We're gonna keep this rhythm.
Yeah. No, I'm enjoying it.
Nice.
I should have a larger canister of coffee though. I went through mine pretty quickly. So that's my learning from today.
I've been speaking so much this time that I couldn't finish my tea. So yeah, alas.
Maybe it'd be your turn to interview me next one. You can drink your tea.
Yes. Nice one.
Cool.
Well, thank you everyone for watching.
Thank you everybody, and see you next time.
Yes, see you next time. Cheers.
Cheers.